So excited that you're all here today. We have Mary Vue. She is the head of partnerships at Sankari. Incredible woman. So glad to have her here today. She's an executive member of Cloud Software Association and Partnership Leaders, where she mentors leaders on how to scale global partner programs and teams. So everyone, please welcome the lovely Mary. Mary, take it away.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm just going to see if I could switch some slides here really quickly. And that way I could share with all of you the pretty slides I've made. Let's see here. Slideshow. All right. So thank you for having me here today, everyone. It's quite the act to follow, especially considering Jared is a star over there at Rev Genius. And so a little bit about why I'm here today, right? If all of you or some of you are from New York, I'm sure you've seen these blue signs, question mark out of the blue in the middle of nowhere with an arrow, right? And really what these signs are is that they're not there at random. It means information is nearby. And so for me, I'm really not here by random. I'm really here because, certainly partner strategy is something you should certainly think about if you're not already thinking about it as you're doing product fit motions, right? And so my hope today is certainly to share with you some of the trends that I'm certainly seeing in my professional networking communities with my partner peers, as well as to share some of my own experiences, right? And hopefully the takeaway is if you haven't thought about partnership strategy during your PMF motion, you should. And if you're already doing it, then great, right? I would certainly say continue to invest in it because it will pay back in spades. And so I wanted to kick us off with this slide. This is a PMF framework. I'm sure many of you recognize this slide, the drunken walk to the product fit, hypergrowth, and scale. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to overlay partners in this, right? A partner strategy. So to talk a little bit about the partner trends, I'd say like some odd kind of, or even 4+ years ago, right? Some folks call this, hey, the old school style of partnering or legacy style of partnering, or even just, a lot of the enterprise companies, right? Today that have partner ecosystems, they really didn't introduce partner strategy until they were in scale mode. And typically at scale mode, they're like, hey, I want to make more money. I'm going to go tap some partners to sell my stuff, to build my stuff, etc. So that was happening kind of, I'd say 4 years ago, right? I mean, pre-pandemic, etc. What is happening today is essentially the partner strategy is actually appearing in the product fit motion, right? And there's a couple of different reasons why. Partners take a long time to develop, grow, evolve, right? I mean, think about it. If you're trying to establish a micro version of your company in a partner, I mean, think about how long it took you to build and scale your company. Now you have to go and repeat everything in a micro version in a company, not just one company, but 20 companies, 30 companies, 100 companies, 50 companies, 300 companies, right? 1,000 companies. And so to do that, it does take time. And so with the, explosion of SaaS and ecosystems and apps, many of the SaaS cloud app companies are essentially investing in partners much earlier during the product fit motion, right? And you might think, hey, how would this impact me? I mean, partners don't show up until I need to make money, right? I'm still trying to figure out how to message this, how to sell this, how to, implement this, and partners are, probably perhaps not ready for that. Well, I challenge you on that, right? So this is actually a slide from State of Partner Ecosystem 2022 by Crossbeam. They do this every year. This just came out in March. This is probably about the third or fourth year that they've done this. And at the top of this chart is that people invest in partnerships and partner strategies because, the desire for revenue, right? Certainly everything else is gravy, entry into new markets, churn, marketing, right? Being able to co-market and ride the wave of some other established tech or SaaS company or product. Customer satisfaction, right? I mean, heck, sometimes your team can only do so much. Being able to add partners to it kind of helps kind of accelerate some of that. And lastly, certainly valuation and share price. While this is kind of the typical reasons why people get into partner strategy investment, what this chart doesn't really address is what is the impact if you pull partner strategy into your PMF motion, right? Whether you're a sales leader, a marketing leader, a CEO, a CTO, you're a leader of your org. If you're an AE or an SDR, right? Partnerships are going to matter. And so when it's in the PMF motion, right, what it really does is it certainly helps inform your product roadmap, right? So if your product and engineering team, great, they're ingenious, they had this awesome idea, got you to where you are, now you're trying to get it to fit in the motion, right? In the market. Partners are working on live customers on a daily basis. They see these problems on a daily basis, and they become a great feedback loop to help inform your product roadmap, to help inform your product and engineering team so that they can work on the right things, work on the things that are faster, create a better UI experience, UI design, user experience, right? Item number 2, sales motion. When you bring partners earlier into the PMF motion, partners become part of your sales DNA. You eliminate any of that kind of sales friction that you might have further down the road when you're trying to scale, right? Because if partners are in your PMF motion, I mean, your AEs, your SDRs will just automatically say, "Hey, partners help me get to President's Club," versus versus having this friction of why is this odd third party trying to take away my deal, right? And lastly, item number 3, your customer success. While you have an awesome customer success team that is implementing innovative customer solutions, think about it. Partners are doing this every day already. And partners could essentially help educate even your own customer success team to be even much more innovative, right? You might have a sample set of 40, 50, 100, 200 customers. Partners have had a sample set of 20 years, right? And that's where partners can certainly, by starting in the PMF motion, partners can certainly help become a fabric of your customer success. So I shared some cool some cool impact points, right? I mean, not just me, right? I wanted to show you that, hey, there are a bunch of companies already investing in a partner strategy early on, seed, Series A, Series B, etc., right? These are just a few of the companies, a few of the peers that I certainly talk to every day that are already doing that, right? And their leaders and certainly see the value of having a partner strategy during the PMF motion, because it certainly informs the organization top down, executive level, all the way down to even the field SDR level, right? As well as field marketing. So a couple of fast facts. I do want to share that, hey, I'm not just, sharing other people's data. These are some of my data points that I've encountered, right? So to think about it, some companies never ever even hit 30% of partner influence ARR in their entire history. And to be able to plant a partner strategy, invest in partner strategy early on in the PMF, you can certainly have a different impact on your business. So I've highlighted 3 impacts today. One, I've seen, either been part of it, built it, frontline, owned it. And the very first one is essentially, certainly see and owned kind of partner influence AR from 5% revenue mix to 50%. From a Series A company that grew into a Series E company with a $5.7 billion valuation. Secondly, having worked for a company that, was $100 million ARR and then exited to acquisition, 40, having worked in that company and driving partner influence ARR throughout the entire business from 40% to 70% mix. That meant that of that 100 million ARR, when we met that threshold, $70 million came from partners, right? That is the impact of that business. And it's not just from a lead gen, demand gen perspective, but it's co-marketing, it's customer success, it's expansion, it's those partners really helping us position our market fit to even get to that 100 million plus, right? And then lastly, for SaaS Series A who say, hey, I'm nowhere near like 5.7 billion valuation, I'm nowhere near 100 million ARR. I might be, a million, or I might be 5 million or 10 million ARR. Introducing a partner strategy during Series A can certainly help inform and actually help create and introduce a new ICP, a new product, a new ARR stream, right? And so those are some of the impactful facts that I can certainly share with all of you today. Happy to share more. As I said, these are all kind of like past lives, but happy to share details if you ping me up, right? Okay, so if all of that sounds exciting and that's kind of where you're headed, you want to get to as you're, working on your product market fit, there are a couple of things to consider, right? And you don't have to do this alone. Certainly you could bring in, leaders, you could network and have them help give you insights. But these are some partner types to consider as you're thinking about this, right? Everything in green is things that drive revenue. Things in blue helps your product and engineering team. Things in black and gray kind of helps you build out that army, that ecosystem of whatever your product is, right? You're trying to build a community. You're always thinking like, hey, I'm building a direct community of my users. But you know what? I guarantee you 50% of those users are your partners or consultants, people who could become your partners, right? So these are all things you want to think about as you think about product market fit. How do you fit into perhaps places that there might be a gap, and how do you accelerate that motion? From there, looking internally, how do you maximize that partner strategy cross-functionally internally, right? I know, talking about partnerships, if you're not a partner leader, that's okay. You might be a sales leader, marketing leader, customer success leader. You might be a leader of any one of these business units. And my point here is essentially the partner strategy has the ability to impact your business and has the ability to certainly work cross-functionally with you to help drive the success of your function, right? I want to zero in on sales and marketing. Right? Sales, you might think, hey, why would I, how do I work with partners? Well, you can certainly co-sell with them. They can certainly refer leads and opportunities to you. They can certainly help resell. They can certainly help you with expansion. You don't have to sit in every deal that you close. If you plant a partner there, they'll do the work for you, and they'll come back to you and say, hey, Mary, I've been in this deal for 6 months. I've implemented them. I've followed them. I've advised them. And we found this new deal, right? And that's where those sorts of value comes in for the salesperson. Beyond that, certainly, we can't be an expert in everything. Partners, a lot of times, they've been in that industry for 20 plus years. Leverage them as a subject matter expert resource, right? Gain kind of confidence from your prospects that you know what you're talking about by bringing a partner to that conversation to really add value. And then lastly, 3x3 relationships. Don't have just a siloed one-way conversation with just the one person. Maybe your 20 plus year partner or 10 plus year partner might already have executive level relationships there that they can certainly help advise and introduce and influence. For the marketing team, you're not alone, right? Think about it. Partners, whether it be consultants or ISVs, you could certainly leverage the clout and the brand equity that partners already bring. Ride that wave. Of course, your goal is to build brand equity, to create lead gen, demand gen. leverage this rich set of resource to help you accelerate that motion, right? If you're not leveraging it today, you should think about it, because it certainly could make your job easier. Be the host, have the partner create the content, that sort of thing. So I hope that kind of gives you just a very quick touch of what maximizing a partner strategy across functionality might look like for your organization. So how do you get started? Partner strategy is a top-down initiative, right? And you want to start with your product. What you're selling, your product is interoperability table stakes for you. Are you entering a new market? Does that product require services? Does it require advisory? Does it require, help to get to go live, right? Understand the value that your product could have and the role that partners could play in your product, right? And once you understand that, then you can start to then say, hey, I'm going to go after this type of partner. And I kid you not, even low code, no code products, right? That requires absolutely no integration or no coding from partners, no billable hours from partners, still leverage partners. And so there's many ways to kind of slice this. So who owns this? Again, like I said, partner strategy is a top-down initiative. The investment in a partner leader is important for this function, right? Certainly, if you're pre-seed, great. Maybe you're not quite ready. Have the CEO, CTO, CPO, CRO run it, right? Depending on where you think that the most value of your partner strategy is going to play out, right? When you get to kind of a stage where you say, okay, now I'm ready for somebody to run this full thing, then you start to look for a partner leader, right? Depending on your product, if it's purely like, if it needs to run across your organization, you need it to generate sales for you. You need it to, get you into different marketplaces. You need it to do technology, those sorts of things to be able to make your product valuable and function, across all your customers. You might want that to report to your CEO top down. If it's purely just, affiliates, referrals, lead gen, channel sales, purely sales, then certainly you want to kind of start to minimize that and bring it down to, hey, report to the CEO or CRO, right? And then if it's purely a tech play, alliances, we need to partner with Salesforce or HubSpot because that's, where we've bet our entire core business on. Then, perhaps maybe, and even in that motion, it might be purely kind of tech only. And you want that to report or dotted line to your CEO, CTO, or CPO, because those pieces require kind of, technical, functional kind of alignment, right? So this is something to think about, right? When you start thinking about that partner leader and where you might want to put them to be able to maximize your investment in the partner strategy, it is dependent on your product. And then lastly, get educated, right? So learn from your peers. Maybe you're not quite sure yet to go all out and put out a job rec and say, hey, come and be a partner leader here, be a VP, be a head of partners. That's okay. Reach out to your network of CEOs, your founders, your leaders, your peers, folks that you've seen stand up a partner ecosystem, folks that you've seen hired on a partner leader, folks that you've seen successful partners. They're happy to certainly share, even lend their partner person to you to give you a brain dump on some things to think about and, some things to figure out, right? Talk to your VCs. Your VCs have an entire portfolio of successful customers who certainly included partner strategy in their PMF, in their hypergrowth, in their scale, right? And lastly, communities like RevGenius. Certainly, even RevGenius has 26,000 members. There's bound to be, I'd say at minimum 10% of the community that is familiar with working with partners, is leading partner strategy, is, our CEOs, VP of marketing, CMOs that are collaborating with their partner counterparts. So so the education, like educate yourself, and then, from there, certainly, decide when you're going to take that next step to bring in partner strategy into your PMF motion, right? So that's all I had. Thank you very much. You can certainly connect with me on all these various different channels. You can find me on Rev Genius. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can follow me. You can even email me at Synchrony. Happy to make time to chat with you and to certainly share more with you. So that is it. I'm going to check to see if there is any questions for me. Okay. So from Eleanor, can you give an example of a good case for B2B PMF partnering, please? So I would say examples of good B2B partner PMF partnering is essentially, think about like your product, right? And I said, hey, where does your product help you fit? I mean, and what role does the partner play, right? So that's kind of where you start, and you say, hey, your product is, it could be, if we think about like what happened with Fivetran and Snowflake, right? I mean, those are examples of PMF partnering where you've got a bigger ISV, and you perhaps are the function of a smaller new SaaS on the market. You partner with an ISV that has a niche fit with you, right? A lot of times people say, hey, it's an ancillary fit, right? But in that ancillary fit is where you kind of get to ride the wave. Even in the example of Synchrony, right? When I think about Synchrony, in the time that I've spent at Synchrony, right, we partner with HubSpot. And in that HubSpot partnering, right, it enabled us to certainly grow in less than 6 months, from 3 mutual HubSpot customers to over 50 plus mutual HubSpot customers, right? And that's a PMF fit where we say, hey, where there's a gap, right? And it might be between 2 partners, or it might be between 3 partners. And in the 2 partners, there's Synchrony and HubSpot, right? There's a niche fit. We add a 3rd layer partner to it, where that partner becomes a vehicle, right? That partner might be an OEM. That partner might be a consultant. That partner might be somebody who's on the ground, who's working with HubSpot customers or Synchrony customers, who say, hey, if we brought these 2 technologies together, we help the customer achieve so much more. In which case, that was exactly what happened, right? So in that use case, I mean, in 6 months, just in being a Series A company, we were able to grow our adoption from 3 customers to 50 customers, just by partnering with a technology partner who had a subset of customers that certainly found value in our joint value proposition, right? Those scenarios typically, certainly you'll see it in the sales team when you're talking to customers. You'll see it in the field with marketing when people give you feedback about like, hey, what you do, my product, and the things I'm using, it's missing these things, but I think you could help me here. And that's where you take that piece and you extrapolate it across a partnership, right? And when you add a partner leader to that, then that partner leader help grease the wheels, help you set up the right marketplaces, the right relationships to how do we amplify this, right? So that would be just kind of an example. I mean, I kind of went from Fivetran Snowflake to like a dialed down Synchrony, but I hope that hopefully answers your question. And you're welcome to hit me up, Eleanor. B2B. So I do want to say, I just went through the cycle of SAP, like literally 3 weeks ago, and SAP has completely changed their model. So you should check that out. SAP has since rolled out this SAP Open Ecosystem. that is actually free, right? You don't have to do rev share. It's free. You can participate in it. You can pay a nominal fee if you need a sandbox to be able to enable your customers. So I would say SAP has come a long way. um, but if you're thinking that, hey, SAP is still an ecosystem that's important to you, you should recheck that out, right? It's called Open Ecosystem, Open Ecosystem. Some good partnership types for B2B startups. It really depends on your product, right? Where does your product play, right? If your product is playing with SaaS MarTech, you might want to take a look at some of the stack that your customers typically work with. So a good way to come about this list is essentially the first thing I did when I joined Synchrony was I went through our entire customer list. I downloaded a customer list of all the active customers, every single deal that ever closed at Synchrony. And then I looked at all the different technology that basically our customers are working with in conjunction with our product, right? And that informs you where to start. Because even when you start to say, hey, I'm going to go and establish some partnerships, you want to be able to establish partnerships that are going to be meaningful to your ICP, to your ideal customer profile, right? You don't want to just be shooting a bunch of blanks in the dark. You want to be able to establish partnerships that are going to have meaning to your sales team, to your marketing team, to your product team. And so the best way to start is take your list of customer wins, look at what they're using your product in conjunction with, and start with those partnerships, right? And lowest hanging fruit is always, hey, get in their marketplace, get certified, right? From there, build enough momentum, get noticed. And then once you can certainly get there, when you're noticed, these partners, regardless of you chasing them down, they're going to say, hey, I want to work with you because 50 of my customers are talking about you, right? That's from an alliance perspective. From a consulting perspective, you want to think about whether or not there's a need, right? Do you need implementation? Do you need services? Do you need referrals, right? I mean, for example, Unbounce, no services, completely self-service. So they have a complete affiliate referral model, right? Where a bunch of marketing agencies refer customers to Unbounce. That's a very kind of simple model, right? The more complicated your product is, then you might want to start to think about, do I need system integrators? Do I need people to learn my product and build my product and implement my product? And so there's certainly value in that. It just depends on your product. Nick, so proven good KPI for partnerships. When you're starting out from scratch, it's typically how many folks did I sign? Yeah, how many of them did their first deal, right? If you're starting from scratch, it's always, once I sign them, can I get them to do a first deal with me? This is the consulting side. On the channel side, right? How many marketplaces did I get into? How many certifications did I get? How many referrals did I get from those marketplaces, right? How many mutual customers did I get to? As you start to evolve that, right, and your partner leader will typically, have these KPIs as well, then, you start to grow revenue, and then revenue becomes a key indicator of your KPI. If you saw my stats, my fast stats earlier, where I talked about 40, growing a revenue mix 40 to 70%. What that meant is essentially the entire company revenue mix, right? If it's $10 million, $4 million came from partners, $6 million came from direct sales and marketing, etc. Growing it to 70 million, growing to 70%, 7 million is now being influenced by partners, 3 million is direct, right? So a mature partner ecosystem eventually gets to a point where you can certainly measure purely on revenue or purely on pipeline build. An early partner ecosystem is typically on how many partners did I recruit, how many did I activate, how many events did I do, because all of those things lead to pipeline, right? What is a good framework to use for partnership review? Quarterly to validate partnerships. Yeah, so this is a great question, Nick. I mean, I know we're up on time, so this will be my last question. Otherwise, you guys can hit me up. This is a great question. typically what when you start off, you might not even need tiers. Everybody's kind of on a clean slate, but a flat footing. But what you want to do is you want to set up tiers to be able to incentivize your partners to do more with you, right? And so when you do that, you might set them based on quantity of deals, quantity of events, quantity of activities, quantity of license sold, quantity of license influence, right? Those are all kind of good indicators to help validate that the partnership is actually doing something to meet the discounts and the bonuses that you're giving them, right? The margins that you're giving them. I wouldn't say quarterly. I mean, I'd say, half in a year is typically where you're validating the partnerships. More enterprisey tends to be a year. Earlier startups tends to be a half, as long as you put the framework in place. But it's a little bit of the wild west when you start really early, and it's more of identifying which ones will go the long haul with you. Usually after your first year, you will then kind of sift out, filter out the ones that are kind of your A players versus your B players and your C players, right? You need all of them. It's okay. Keep all of them. But your A players are the ones that are going to certainly meet and exceed your expectations, right? So I hope this session was helpful. And if you haven't started thinking about partner strategy, I hope, the little bit of knowledge I shared today got you thinking. And I welcome all of you to connect with me.